Welcome to Podnutz episode number 24. This episode, we're joined with Scott Mueller, who's the author of the book, Upgrading and Repairing PCs. If you guys don't have this book and you're into computer repair or you're a computer repair technician, go out and buy it. It has everything you'd probably be searching the internet for anyway, all in one place. And if you have it around, you're going to refer to it more times than not. It's an incredibly valuable tool. You can pick up Scott's book at your local bookstores, or you can buy it online from sites like Amazon.com. The website for the book is upgradingandrepairingpcs.com. And you can check out Scott's forums for upgrading and repairing computers at forum.scottmueller.com. For those of you still using Twitter, we are still around and kicking on Twitter ourselves. You could follow us at podnutz.com/Twitter. And if you haven't joined the Podnutz forums yet, you guys got to get in there. You could sign up there for free at podnutz.com/forums. Okay, here's the interview with Scott. All right, I'm here with Scott Mueller from Upgrading and Repairing PCs. It is like, I would call it the Bible of computer repair, and you could find it almost anywhere. Where is it, Scott? It's in Borders, it's in Barnes & Noble, it's in Amazon, it's pretty much everywhere, right?
Yes, it is. It's pretty much all, normal bookstores. It could also be ordered, online via Amazon or bn.com.
And the 2008 version is the 18th edition, right?
Right, that's the current version. Obviously at some point in the future there'll be another version, but right now that is it.
Cool. So, Scott, thank you very much for joining us for this interview. A lot of my listeners have been eagerly awaiting this podcast since I told them that you agreed to do the interview. So I can't wait to get started. There's going to be so much cool stuff to talk about and a lot of questions I have to ask you as well. Let me just start off by asking, how did you get started in computers?
Oh, wow. Well, that goes all the way back to the Apple II days. Okay. And basically it was late 70s, early 80s. I was playing around with Apple IIs. And, that was kind of like the PC of the day. That was really before there were PCs as we know them today. And, of course, a lot of it was, more hobbyist-oriented. Right. And one, revelation back then was I discovered the CP/M operating system. I thought that was amazing. I installed what was called a Z80 card in the Apple II, which turned it into a CP/M machine. And by doing that, I was basically leaving the whole Apple world behind and it turned it into a whole other computer. And CP/M was kind of like considered a predecessor to DOS. And really, that was kind of what segued me eventually into the, IBM PC and PC, marketplace when that finally came out. But early on in those days, I got hooked up with a seminar training company, and I began teaching classes that were originally conducted on the Apple II. And then these, it went for like a year or a couple of years, and I was actually driving around the country in a box truck with something like 100 to 200 Apple II computers and separate floppy drives they had back then and monitors. And I used to have to load them all into a hotel room, on a Sunday, and we'd run classes then from Monday to Friday. I'd load them all up on Friday and drive to the next city. Usually had like a 1,000-mile drive in between these, over the weekend, and set it all up and do it again. I almost lived out of this truck for like 10 months.
Were you teaching them the Apple operating system?
Actually, our classes were some weird ones. The main class was VisiCalc, the VisiCalc spreadsheet, which was the first computer spreadsheet program, and that was our bread and butter class. Then we also had a weird class called Programming in Basic for Managers, as if managers at companies were writing software back then. It was basically an excuse just to play with the computers. I mean, that's what a lot of people who attended these classes were doing. And in fact, at the end of the class, we leased them. The computers themselves were, an Apple II back then was like $3,000 to $4,000. Right. So we were leasing them these systems at the end of the class. They could literally take the computer home, and that was kind of a big deal, for them back then. And for a few $100s, they could play with it for a month or a couple months, and then send it back. Most of them ended up keeping them, of course.
Of course.
And then it was we did a couple of other Apple software based classes, but then the whole Apple thing kind of just died. And of course, what had happened was the IBM PC had come out in August of '81, and then after '82, everything just went PC. I mean, VisiCalc was ported over to a PC, and then Lotus 123 came out.
Right.
So this seminar company I was teaching for, they migrated everything over to PCs, and suddenly they wanted me to teach, Lotus 123. So I had bought an IBM XT computer in 1983, and with the 10 megabyte hard drive and all that, and basically went back out on the road. Although this time we weren't driving computers around. We were renting them, in different cities,
right.
and so a lot of the setup wasn't as much of a hassle. But then I started teaching classes on, based on PCs. And, from there, at first I was teaching other people's classes that they had, like, for example, I wasn't a spreadsheet person, by nature or an accountant, but this accountant person had written the 123 class that I was teaching. So eventually I wanted to be more just about the hardware and
right.
the operating system. So I eventually came up with classes that were just literally dedicated to the hardware and the OS, and then had to, since it was my class, I had to write a workbook for it, and then that whole, workbook or seminar book situation turned into something that I thought I could get published. And it was, about the mid-'80s, I had hooked up with Q Publishing, and I showed them, I'd already had like a couple 100-page, book done, and I said, I want to, professionally publish this, and then I'll get paid like twice, because I'll get paid for teaching the class and for writing the book,
exactly.
as opposed to just for teaching the class. So, and that's basically what segued me into writing books.
Well, yeah, that was going to be my next question, is what got you writing the book, but you just answered it. What,
Yep.
How easy was it to convince Q to do something like that? Was it something new? Because I think a lot of people out there are interested in maybe, I've thought one time about publishing a book, but don't know what really goes into it. What's that process?
Right,
like?
well, what interested them was funny, because I remember first meeting with them at the Convex show in Las Vegas. And this was like I'm going to say it was around 1985 or something like that. And I'm like, yeah, I got this great idea for this book. And they looked at it and said, yeah, that's great, but, we pretty much only do software books. And what I was proposing was upgrading and repairing PCs, a hardware book.
Right.
And they said, but we want you to write a book on OS2 for us. Can you do that?
Huh.
And I was kind of hemming and hawing on that, and he said, well, in the meantime, some other author had come up with an idea, or was writing a book for them on the IBM PS2 machine. So this was 1987, actually,
okay.
When this happened. And I guess the book wasn't doing very well, and they wanted a technical editor for it. So I said, yeah, all right, I'll technical edit that book, and I ended up writing like half of it. And then, so they made me a co-author, even though I still only got paid as a technical